After releasing albums the three previous years, 1984 seemed to find the church treading water, so to speak. I mean, sure, they were performing and touring as rigorously as ever, but where was the new music? Well, it came in the form of two EPs. The first, released early in the year, was Remote Luxury, and this featured on synths and keyboards Davey Ray Moore, who was a member of the Crystal Set, which also featured Steve's younger brother Russell. Great band. And then the second, released later in that year, was Persia, and this one featured Craig Hooper on keys and synths from the Reels, and Steve Kilbey said at the time that Craig Hooper was like the fifth member of the band. But they sort of sunk without a trace, if you like, continuing that treading water metaphor. And so later on, the two albums were combined for the release in the US market for an album, supposedly, called Remote Luxury. And there it is, very much looking like the cover of Persia featuring Corinne Jansen there in a graveyard in Newtown, but it's a different photo. And so the question must be asked, is this version of Remote Luxury a mere compilation, or does it stand alone as the fourth Church studio album? Let's check it out. Remote Luxury begins with Constant in Opal, which was Steve's favourite song from the EP at the time. I love that guitar note that begins, and then we're propelled along by some really groovy bass and wonderful Rickenbacker arpeggios. Dreamy vocals from Steve all the way through, and we've got reverse guitar that just shimmers perfectly throughout the piece. The keyboards are a little bit of their time, but they work. Now, there's only one chord progression in this song. I would have loved it to have kicked up a gear, but it's great live and it's a fantastic song, and it clearly has or maintains that church sound. Some wonderful lyrics here too, if I can read them. Me and the puzzled travelers, we searched the ground for wealth and scoured the dreaming valleys on days where shadows melt, digging for the blue and green, constant in opal and aquamarine. And then that moves us into the magical pop song, which is Violet Town. Yep, the keys have that 80s feel, but now they feel to me pretty much timeless. The dramatic chorus is superb, edgy and angular, with beautiful guitar lines under it. And this is a wonderful trademark of this album. There seem to be often simple songs on the surface, but if you listen beneath, there's some wonderful playing that's going on. The break with the dogs and the laughter of children is quite psych, and then we have the rumbling drums of Ploog that cleverly break up the sort of standard drum progression throughout it. It's an absolutely fantastic number. Great lyrics too, of course. Sad trees throw shade that falls around empty streets of Violet Town. Gardeners the houses stand and eyes in windows strange. When I'm here, I have this feeling I don't want to know in Violet Town. And that moves us into No Explanation, which I sort of dismissed back in the day until a friend of mine told me I needed to give it a re-spin. So I did. And that little instrumental bit at the start is absolutely cool, very pastoral and of the country. And apparently that occurred while they were working on No Explanation, and Steve popped out of the studio for a moment, and the band continued to jam, and it evolved into this short little section. Steve came back into the control booth and said to John B, who was co-producing the album, to hit record, and John B said, "I'm already doing it. Just wish it was longer." Anyway, No Explanation. The jingle jangle is back, and it is absolutely sublime. I love the harmonics at the end of all these guitar phrases. A memorable chorus riff, and Steve is on fine, mellow vocals with the touches of backing vocals working a real treat. And that half-tempo middle section is absolute royalty. Gorgeous. Gorgeous lyrics too. Dreamed tongue men from the golden land, standing with the keys to your door. I had to laugh as I shook his hand. Didn't know he'd been here before. I know him well, but can never tell if he sees right through my futile disguise. Then, right from the opening of the next song, we know it's a Marty song, and it's 10,000 Miles. I wish the vocals were just a little bit higher in this mix, But that echo in the chorus vocals, 10,000, 10,000 miles away, is absolutely heavenly. And then we get this instrumental breakdown, which seems cut from about the grooviest soundtrack of a 50s, 60s sci-fi film you've ever heard. And it almost sounds like there's a theremin on there, but I don't think it is. I think it's the guitar architecture of the twin guitars of Peter and Marty just wielding their magic beautifully. Um, and then there's a lovely, lovely brief solo, I'm assuming from Peter, but I'm not sure. And the lyrics, my memory is leaking. She lost a ruby ring. They're trying to focus times in the past. The music has stopped and can't carry on. All of a sudden, I start to remember summer, Germany, and then it's gone. That then brings us to the final song on the first side, and it's the one which causes the most controversy and is the most contentious, and it's called Maybe These Boys. Is this the worst church song ever? The biggest mistake they ever made? And I am categorically here to say absolutely not, because there's no such thing as the worst church song ever or just a bad church song. There are just lots of different church songs. Anyway, and I think if this was on an album by another band, or if it was on a Steve Kilbey solo album, we'd be saying it was not a bad song. It was a great song even. Yeah, sure, it's synth-driven glam. But when I first heard this, I was really excited because it was the song that opened the EP Remote Luxury. And I thought, my fave band, The Church, has got themselves a hit. They're going to go international with this one. Well, what do I know? But hopefully you're still listening anyway. The synth brass line does sound a little bit cheesy, but yeah, if you listen to the undergrowth of this garden, you will be rewarded with some fertile pleasures. These guitars produce photosynthetic psyche goodness, whatever that means. I think you know what it means. And those machine-like vocals at the end with the piano, but those machine-like vocals give us a real sense that this band has been listening to Gary Newman. Lovely vocals, some black-hearted actors interfered with your scene, and you can't stand success or the place where it's been. Now, it is interesting that, as I said, it opened the first side of Remote Luxury, and now it's been buried to the end of the first side. But I think it's just a way to get us really excited about what's coming on the second side of this album. Don't you think? Time to flip it over. And what a way to start side two with the total beauty of Into My Hands and those jangling guitars which introduce us to this moment of pop perfection. It reminds me quite a lot of Tear It All Away and that double A-side single with Too Fast for You for its warmth and also its production. It's a wonderfully melodic chorus, and the instrumental breakdown with the slide guitar has some of the most bucolic West Coast cosmic psych vibes in the entire church oeuvre. And have you guessed how much that I love this song? Well, a total appreciation for this. And the lyrics, a lot of S's about to come. Some seek sleek and slithering charms, out of reach of grasping arms. Our skin like milk, our breath of words, like happy, awful, and absurd. But as we're climbing in this beautiful mountain of church perfection, we go up to a even higher pinnacle, in my opinion, and that's to a month of Sundays. Listen to that wistful 12 string and those guitar effects. I think they're guitar effects which underpin them. It's a dreamy call and response vocal from Steve. Absolutely beautiful. Again, which reminds me of Sisters from that double A-side single. The drumming throughout is perfect. It's a pastoral piece of pop perfection in which the complex layers of sound amazingly achieve a cohesion of seeming simplicity, lifting to a joyous conclusion. Absolute wonder. And the lyrics, and she beckons to you with her fingers and lies. She says, can't you slice the price? Can't you slice the price of your paradise? You're saying, no, 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 I must be on my way, but it really has been a pleasant night. And you go so slow, hope they'll ask you to stay, and indifference gives you a fright. I think we've all been there, don't you think? Then it's time for us to get our rockin' socks back on with a wonderful guitar-driven song by Marty called Volumes. The power and the ominous nature of the verses is one of Marty's crowning absolute genius moments. You can always pick a Marty song. They're of Marty, they're of the band, they fit in beautifully, and he's created some of the greatest church songs of all time. After all, we're not talking about a Noel Redding song on a Jimi Hendrix album. Sensational backing vocal harmonies all the way through, and it seems to presage a feeling they would explore on an album like Starfish. And I've been a bit guilty of overlooking this one. Some lovely lyrics too. Pretty things all in a row, flowers who can't seem to grow, finding the pearls, then finding the blood, then finding the water is wood. Fantastic. Then we move on to maybe the best known song on this album. Certainly an absolute crowd pleaser when it's performed live, and that is Shadow Cabinet, which was interestingly the culmination of a group jam where they started jamming on this, and then Steve went away and put some words in the melody. It's got a feel of sing-songs for me in the opening riff. It reminds me quite a bit of In This Room with those beautiful Rickenbacker arpeggios. And Steve's vocals loom large over the proceedings here and the majesty of this. And the break after that second chorus, beginning with the power of Ploog, take this song to new heights. And there's this sort of dual solo from Craig Hooper and one of the guitarists, which get us into this psyche goodness. And then Pete's, I'm assuming it's Pete's, reverse guitar takes us away, always beautifully enjoined by Marty's pop, precise, perfect arpeggios on their guitar. And those arpeggios are really, even more so, starting to define that classic church sound. Let's check out some lyrics. Hear the difference between close and near, the way oaths and oafs interfere. Bliss comes first as a jangling flood. Pillow from the old country arrives with a thud. That night she drinks ceremony and mud. It's happening, I say. And then the album closes out with the title track, Remote Luxury. And it was 40 years ago that I was at where was I? At the St. Ives Rock and Roll Fair on the 4th of March in 1984, seeing the church on a bill that included Split Ends, the Hoodoo Gurus, you name it. And all I remember from that concert was hearing Remote Luxury played. I was standing a little bit in front of Marty on that side of the stage, and I was swept away by the euphoria of the occasion, knowing all the while that it was going to be an ephemeral moment, but it stuck with me. Now, is this, it's a guitar instrumental. It's a beautiful acoustic riff to start off with, which is joined very sympathetically by Richard's bass drum and Steve's bass line, and then the harmonized lead guitar that lead us up to a majestic climax, creating a wash of what I can only call is surrealism. Now, some people might think this is a bit of guitar wankery, but I disagree entirely. I think all instruments here are serving the song. And if it is guitar wankery, then please, church, give me a little bit more. To me, this always inspires visions of that afternoon at St. Ives, and it has a daydreaming quality that I love to take back on board at every occasion that I listen to it. Absolutely wonderful, nostalgic, glorious way to finish the second side. So I come back to that original question that I posed at the start of the video. Is this album merely a compilation, or does it stand alone as the church's fourth solo album? You know, as a church album, I think it works perfectly well, and I've got lots of enjoyment out of listening to it. But there's something inside me which still yearns for those EPs, those original EPs, which I sold or got rid of years ago. Very bad person. And especially it's the second side of the Remote Luxury EP that I particularly cherish, where it goes from Into My Hands to A Month of Sundays to Remote Luxury. And that is a slice of perfect vinyl right there. Still, as an album, it does offer a bridge from Seance to Heyday, and that's a bridge which is an absolute pleasure to walk across. And speaking of pleasure, if music of any size, shape, or colour gives you pleasure, then who am I to argue with your opinion? I hope you've enjoyed this video. I think this is my 5th or 6th church video now, and the intention is eventually to do every album. But if you'd like to see the other ones that I've done to this point, then please click on the playlist. And if you've liked this journey, then hit like, maybe even a subscribe. But Until next time, hope you're well, and bye now.